the overview. We'll start with a brief discussion of why alignment is so important, and then we'll hear highlights from the breakout rooms. I also have an assignment example from one of your colleagues I'd like to share. And then we're going to move into a feedback exercise, a chance for you to incorporate some of the feedback language you've been hearing modeled over the last couple of months. And then finally, we'll get into Q&A before we close. I do want to ask Meg, were you going to gather us in prayer?
Yes. Hi, Kate.
Yes. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Thank
I
you.
I can hear myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you for the gift of eloquence and knowledge, to be part of this institution, to be able to participate in today's activities in good health, and to have the space to focus. These are all blessings I thank you for. Guide me today to be more patient when I interact with my peers, my students, my family, and my friends over video calls and formal yet ambiguous chat and email exchange. Help me to be more sensing of the words not spoken and gestures not exchanged. Help me to be more understanding. Guide me to be humble when I know less. Help me that I may catch myself when I get frustrated or when I feel arrogant to learn new things. May I be reminded to approach the unknown with curiosity and to not be afraid to ask for help. May I be more patient with myself today, patient enough to find humor in the little things, strong enough to evaluate and communicate what I desire and what I disagree with. Today and every day is a day of compromise, sacrifice, and understanding to align with the people around me. May I have the courage to always choose to be kinder and to be better. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Meg.
Thank you.
Excellent. So in your breakout sessions, I'm hoping you were able to spend a good amount of time discussing alignment and also picking up on instructor presence, which many of you didn't have a chance to discuss last time. So I wanted to be sure that we revisited it this time. I want to say a few words about the importance of alignment, since I consider it the most valuable player when it comes to instructional design. So I actually recently had a conversation with Rita and joked with her that this entire series could be focused on alignment, and that probably still wouldn't be adequate in stressing its importance. Alignment is so central and so foundational to course design, and perhaps even more important in the online setting, because without alignment, we're probably wasting some amount of the student's time and the instructor's time as well. Without alignment, it's challenging to evaluate the effectiveness of teaching strategies. So an instructor may have designed what seems to be an outstanding project, but if it isn't aligned to learning outcomes, there's no way of knowing how effective the project is in promoting learning. And additionally, alignment builds trust and motivates students. So when we see inconsistency between the competences, the outcomes, and the assessments, this leads to frustration and lack of engagement. So there are so many ways that misalignment can manifest, but here's one way. This is the course where there's so much content. Students are swimming in readings, films, textbooks, primary sources. And when it comes to the assessments only cover a small portion of the content consumed. And this is when you hear faculty saying things like, my students are asking me why they had to buy the textbook. Or we might hear a student say, I read all but one of the 10 assigned readings, and that was the one text that was covered in the exam. And then alternately, this is a less common scenario, but it certainly happens, where readings and texts are minimal, and perhaps there's an over-reliance on lectures as content. And when it comes to assessments, students aren't adequately prepared. So here you might hear a faculty member saying, My students think my tests are way too hard, and their low grades reflect that. So what we're striving for is this balance of carefully curated content mapping to right-sized assessments. And by right-sized, I mean for the students who take part in all of the work, who read the text of the course, who participate in class and do the homework, these students aren't experiencing gotcha moments on their tests. And perhaps some of the content includes optional reading for those students who want a deeper dive on a particular topic, but that optional reading isn't assessed for a grade. So the goal here is my students are clear on course learning outcomes and how they will demonstrate mastery. And you see that I added in peer reviews as a way to provide balance in the alignment. It's not, so in that case, it's not simply the faculty member who's assessing, but especially in higher ed settings, some of the assessment is entrusted to peers. And then backwards design is how we achieve alignment. So I don't know if anybody talked about backwards design in your small groups, but this graphic would look familiar to you if you took the ADL course. With backward design, we assure alignment in outcomes-based education. So first we identify the desired results. Then we determine the acceptable evidence of those results. So students will be able to A, B, and C. And then we plan learning experiences and instruction accordingly. This is how we align assessments to learning outcomes. So I'm hoping this is reinforcing what you discussed in the breakout sessions and that the time with your colleagues was helpful to you in supporting your thinking around alignment. I'd love to hear from a couple of the breakout rooms, a couple of highlights. What did you take away from your group discussion that will support your evaluation of online courses? I heard some really lively discussions on the higher ed side, but anyone feel free to share. You can share in the chat box, you can share by voice. What were aha moments or good ideas that you heard today? And of course, a lot of this is documented in the Scribe document, which you all have access to, and you can all refer back to as a reference guide when you're evaluating courses or when you're thinking through best practices. But I'd love to hear a couple today. So quiet. Is it still too early in the morning?
Okay, I think Ariel Bichon, he raised his hand.
Yes. Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Hi, good morning, Kate. Hi, good morning, everyone. What struck me earlier in the discussion in our breakout room was more about the instructor presence. It's the one teacher mentioned that the course that she was evaluating, at least through the syllabus of that course and teacher, that she could hear the voice of the teacher when she reads the syllabus. And that to me is a highlight, because I'm teaching purpose of communication, albeit in Filipino language. So I think even with how we write and compose our pages then, and when we give our instructions, as much as we also want to use the university language register, to use a technical term, I think it's part of teacher presence is allowing your own language register to permeate or to seep through with what you compose as reading materials also for your students. So so teacher presence even in the written pages of your modules. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such a great example. And yes, an opportunity for all faculty members to just put their voice, like you're saying, Ariel, put their voice into everything, even the written word. Really, really great stuff. Let's hear from at least one more person. Is that Marianne?
Marianne.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Our group discussed how to balance content and competencies, especially on courses with board exams. Board exams would require everything. We do not know what would come out in the board exam, and we want our students to pass the board exam. Of course, we want our school to have the 100% passing, but we do not know how to balance that we should only teach or we should only emphasize on the competency. So there was a discussion on that in our group, and I think that would be something that we have to think about, especially in courses that have board exams. Thank you.
That's a great call out, Marianne. Thank you so much. You know, it's so essential that we chunk content, and when you're preparing students for a board exam and there's just, like you said, such an enormous amount of content, how do you do that? How do you chunk that and curate that in a meaningful way? And I think for the assignment next week for content curation, you'll have a unique lens on this, thinking about the board exam, because I think content curation is so, so important when you have that high volume of content. Great. So I want to, is there anyone else who had a burning desire to share, or can I move forward? Great. What I have here is, I have an example of the homework from John Lennon, who graciously agreed to share, and he's going to read the holistic feedback that he provided on this assignment. I think it's a great example of what good looks like and what we can aspire to when we're giving feedback. So, John, let's hear.
Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. So I'm just going to read my holistic feedback, the one that I submitted for our homework a month ago. So this is what I said. Okay, thank you so much for your hard work thus far. I appreciated the effort and the skill that went into the building of the course. It is evident that the materials in the course were selected with care and presented with much consideration of the audience that will be viewing them. In terms of your assessments, there were a couple of things that I found commendable. Number one, the instructions that you gave were all very clear and detailed. If I were a student taking this course, I would not encounter much difficulty submitting requirements. I doubt I would even have the need to ask for clarifications. Number two, the assessments in themselves were on point. Given the situation we find ourselves in, I see no better way of achieving and measuring our CLOs apart from the assessments that you presented. Number three, giving the students the freedom to exercise their creativity is also a touch of genius. They were given so much space to make use of all of their talents to present the best possible work. Finally, I also appreciated the course competences that you presented. As an introductory course, I do believe that these are necessary for students to have mastered prior to moving on to other theology courses. That being said, there were some questions that popped up while I was going through your assessments. If you are up for it, I would like to go over some of them with you right now. I'd also be happy to schedule an online meeting with you whenever convenient so that we could talk about these things with greater clarity and depth. I noticed that the deadlines have not yet been set. I imagine that students would appreciate knowing ahead of time when exactly their requirements are due. While I appreciate giving students creative freedom, is it possible for some parameters to be set anyway? I guess that while there are those who appreciate being given space, there are also some who might like to have some form of structure to depend on when it comes to their presentations. And finally, I also noticed that there are assignments to be done in groups. However, I do not recall seeing instructions on how to go about peer reviews. It might be a good thing to also give students the opportunity to evaluate each other. Okay, thank you again for all your work and for also allowing me to review your assessments. Again, if you would like to go over them in an online meeting, I would be more than happy to schedule one with you. All the best. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you for the great effort and detail you went in on that example. I'd like to ask your classmates, how would you feel if you received this? How would you feel if you received feedback like this? Just in the chat box. Equipped and empowered, grateful, motivated to improve, thankful. Absolutely. This is a true gift. I mean, this is really a gift, the gift of feedback, right? And I'm putting this in our examples folder, in our Google Drive folder, so that you all can have that. And just as a reminder, and we also have Father Harvey's example from last time in here as well, just for inspiration when you're planning feedback for your colleagues. I feel great, ecstatic, Ireneo says. This is excellent. Yeah, good stuff. So let's move now into the feedback exercise now that we've seen this great example. Feedback takes practice, as you all know, and I'm hoping that one of your takeaways from this webinar series is that you give better, more focused and supportive feedback to your colleagues. So with that in mind, open a new tab on your computer or take out a piece of paper and a pen, or if you're on your phone, open up your email or your notes somewhere you can jot down a sentence. I want you to think back to feedback that you received that you struggled to hear. Write down what was said to you and put it into one sentence. So maybe you struggled to hear it because of how it was delivered or when it was delivered. Maybe you struggled with the content of it or you didn't agree with it. You can go back as far as you'd like when you're 10 years old and your grandma says that she doesn't like your haircut. It can be something recently that a colleague shared with you, but write it down and put it into one sentence. And just raise your hand if once you have that written down, just so I have an idea of how far along you are. Great. Okay, so you've written down the one sentence. Now, rewrite that sentence so that it is affirming and helpful feedback. You can add another sentence if you need. So no matter the context, just go for it. So if grandma said, I don't like your haircut, maybe this time she says it saying, oh, the way your bangs are cut, I miss seeing your beautiful eyes, or something like that. This is hard. I'll just tell you that it's hard to do this, especially when we're thinking about feedback that we struggled with. All right, and let's see, show your hands when you have that ready. And in fact, only show your hand if you're prepared to share it with the group. I'd like to hear from a few of you. Gail, are you volunteering?
Yeah, sure.
Great. Let's hear what you originally heard, and then let's hear how you rewrote it.
Okay, I actually heard this from my PhD study, so it was like a couple of years ago. I was told, sit down, Miss De La Paz, because your experiment proposal is pointless. And then if I were to change it, I would say, Miss De La Paz, your study may not fit an experiment because the concepts you want to explore are not suitable for an experiment. Would you like us to go over them?
Beautiful.
Yeah, so here.
Thank you so much. Great example. And I bet you would feel completely differently if that's what had been said to you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Okay, let's hear from Annalie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This was given to me by my husband yesterday. It's a bit funny, but I just like to share. So he said, "Why do you have to buy so much junk online? What are these things you have been ordering?" But he said it in Filipino, so it's much more harsher, I guess. And then I translated it into, "I know you have been excited to shop online, but maybe you can buy higher quality items that would be more durable."
Really thoughtful. That's great. And I love that it was an example in the last 24 hours. And this is a good practice, too, when we're getting feedback, especially from people that we're close with, we can say, we can ask them if there's another way they can phrase what they just said. We can give them a second chance. And if they're not able to do that, you can offer a suggestion. Like, it would help me if maybe you delivered that feedback this way. I'm able to hear it a little bit better. Do we have one more person willing to share an example?
I have a funny feedback from my student in accounting. Can I finish it up? Well, he said, "I am having a nightmare about accounting." Okay, but the reassurance after that was a little bit funny when he said, he wrote, and then he texted me again and he said, "At least you are in my dreams, Professor." My goodness. So, huh? That's why. Okay. So the assurance is that the students still thinking about accounting. All right. That's all.
Okay, so you don't want to give another approach to that, even though it is funny and all in good fun. It probably made you feel a certain way, right, when you read that.
Yeah. But I wish you would just say, uh, "I'm having difficulty in accounting. Could we go over some of the things again?" And that would be fine, right? But
Yes.
saying that he has having nightmares, I said, "Oh wow, that is scary," right?
Yeah,
Okay. All
that's
right.
great. Thank you so much for sharing that example.
Okay.
Excellent. So wonderful. If you weren't able to do this tonight or this morning, I do recommend that you try it sometime just as an exercise, because it actually is healing to think back to some of these things and also recognize that you now have the language to deliver feedback that uplifts versus kind of taking people down. So we have just a couple minutes left. Are there any questions that folks want to ask now before we close out? Maria, please. Maria, are you raising your hand? You're muted if
Yes,
you're
yes,
talking.
yes, yes.
Great.
Okay. Um, Is it correct to interpret that people who don't want to give feedback are themselves not open to feedback?
I don't know that we can make a blanket statement like that. I mean, everyone's feedback practice is so personal, and it could be that people are trained to deliver feedback, but not trained to receive it. And actually, a company where I consulted recently, you know, they provided 2 different trainings. One was on receiving feedback and one was on giving feedback. And I thought that was really smart because they are 2 different beasts. So I wouldn't say that it's the same in each direction. So, but again, if you're struggling with someone, you know, it's worth kind of having that meta conversation to say, I'd love to offer feedback, but I'm not sure how open you are to it. And I wonder too, if you deliver feedback. So just kind of having that feedback about feedback conversation.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, it might be cultural too.
It might be, yeah. And I see we're out of time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for attending this session. Thank you, Meg, Rita, Isabel, and I know Galvin, Jen, Father Johnny aren't here, but thanks to everyone on the SALT team as always. The assignment for next time is on content curation. This should be much less time intensive, maybe 20 or 30 minutes, but definitely important to do. And read over the master scribe document from the breakout sessions. And you can also add to it if you're looking at your group's notes and there are things you want to add to, you can go in and do that. If you had trouble entering into the scribe document, please contact the SALT team with your group's information. And Galvin said he would add it to the document. So please do that. I know group 12 and any other groups that had trouble adding your content, please do that. And I look forward to seeing you all again on April 13th. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks
you.
everybody.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you very much,
Had a great
Kate.
time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you very
See you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Thank you,
next time.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Hasta la vista,
Amping.
Kate. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone, happy Tuesday. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Do we need to take attendance?
I think we may be doing attendance through the scribe sheet, but that's a great question. Rita, is that right?
Yes, and we took note of the breakout attendance in the breakout rooms.
Great.
Miss Kate, sorry,
Thank
I forgot
you.
to ask. Can I still ask a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Miss Kate. What tips can you give, especially to very young and new administrators who may have, some reservations giving feedback, especially to more seasoned teachers that are under them?
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on this a little bit before, and I can't see who was talking just now. I want to address you by name.
Attorney Eddie?
It's Jay. Jay.
Jay. Sorry.
Kate.
Jay, yeah.
Jay Perez.
Jay. Okay, Jay. Hi. So the thing with in this particular instance, I think that is helpful is to say and to have the mindset that you're becoming an expert on evaluating online courses and that you've been attending these courses at SALT and you are learning about online pedagogy and taking deeper dives in it, and that you are supplying that knowledge base, or you're using that knowledge base to evaluate the courses. So having nothing to do with your seniority or your experience in your profession, you are developing a knowledge base that these people don't necessarily have. And that's what you're bringing to the table. And I think it's like focusing on what you're bringing to the table versus thinking about the power differentials. Because then they can see that as a gift, right? They can say, oh, you know, Jay really knows, he knows his stuff. He knows about alignment. He knows about content curation. He knows how to engage a community of online learners. And that's knowledge that I don't necessarily have as a professor. And I'm grateful that Jay has this knowledge to make my course better. So that's the goal, right? It's not Jay knows more about this subject matter than I do. It's more that Jay knows about online learning design.
Thank you so much, Miss Kate. I ask that because oftentimes we have a lot of reluctant leaders. You know, they have the abilities, they have the capabilities, but you know, sometimes they feel that they're not ready, you know, in themselves to have to be in a certain position where they would have to give feedback. So your insights are very, very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for asking that.
Hello, Kate. I stayed because I'm the scribe of Group 12. May I know how I could send our document over to the SALT team, or I don't know how. I ended up writing it, encoding it in a Word document. So how do I
Thank you
submit
so much.
ours?
Rita, how best for, is that PJ?
Yes, PJ. Yeah.
Okay. How best for PJ to deliver this information to Galvin or to the SALT team?
Please email to Galvin.
Okay.
I'll give you his, I'll put it on the chat.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Noted.
Email.
I'll do that.
Thanks, PJ. Thanks for checking in and
No
for
problem.
doing that. And my apologies again for the challenges you were having.
Well, I'm glad we found out what the problem was, and so we can move on from there.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You don't mind being the guinea pigs of the situation. It's all right.
Really
Okay.
appreciate it.
I'm signing off now. Thank you. I'll send Galvin the document soon. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much. And I'm seeing a question from Vincent. I don't know, Vincent, if you're still here.
I'm still here, Miss Kate. Sorry, I wasn't able to type quickly because.
No worries. You know, that's your question is very compelling, and I would offer that it's a case-by-case situation. I would say in this context, it would be more of a negative feedback. If I'm a faculty member expecting feedback about my course from someone and all I get is silence, I would take that as a negative. Would you agree?
I think I would agree with what you've said, Miss Kate. I think some observation I have of how people would give feedback is that most of the time they would be giving something that is something that has to be corrected, something that may be negative and all. But when it comes to the positive aspect of things that a person does, they're like silent about it. And I was hoping that more people could have heard what you have shared just now, that silence in the context of work may be treated as a negative feedback because I think it doesn't acknowledge the contributions of the person, but instead it gives like a burden to the other that he's probably like a liability to the community rather than someone who is helping in his or her own way. Thank you very much, Miss Kate. It was great to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. And thank you so much for that. I think it's a great call out. And I think I was trying to say that a little bit with sharing John Lennon's example, where he gives so much positive feedback and almost it was more positive feedback than constructive feedback. And when you see the responses of everyone in the room, I asked how you would feel if you got it. Everyone's so uplifted, and it's really, really important that we give positive feedback as much as possible. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and I can certainly revisit that next time.
Thank you, Miss Kate. Sige po, I'll leave po already. Thank you.
Thanks.